By middle school age, students can relate and may have questions about many systems, including the human body system that they interact with every day. In this unit, students will explore how our bodies live, grow, and respond to the environment. They will learn that each of us starts out as a small cell, that cells join to form tissues, tissues then join to form organs, and organs from different organ systems. Together, all the different organ systems serve specific functions that make up the human body. Specifically in this course, students will research multiple systems and dive deeper into how the digestive, circulatory, respiratory, and nervous systems work. At the end of each investigation, students will take a Check for Understanding assessment on Edulastic, and at the end of the unit, students will take an end-of-unit assessment. Now it's your turn to pause and think. What is your personal why for why this topic about human body systems is important? Go ahead and jot down your why. Did you write down your why? Great. Now let's move to the standards aligned to this unit. There are 4 major performance expectations that explain what students should be able to do by the end of this unit. And so for these first 2 in summary, students should be able to conduct or explain how they would conduct an investigation to provide evidence that organisms or living things are made up of cells, different number of cells, different types of cells. They should also be able to explain that the human body is made from different systems that interact, and they need to provide evidence for how they know this. For these last 2 performance expectations, students need to use or develop models that show that digestion involves the rearrangement of food through multiple reactions, and that these reactions provide energy to do anything, such as run, walk, sleep, work, and that these reactions provide matter that allow us to grow. Lastly, students should be able to use different types of data and information from different sources to understand how the nervous system works. Basically, the system works by having different types of sensory receptors that sense everything around us, called stimuli. And then they send these stimuli as electrical or chemical messages to the brain. The brain processes the messages and then allows us to react or store memories. So now it's your turn. Take a look again and reread the performance expectations, which you can also find on the FOSS website underneath the Human Systems unit. If you were to summarize what students are to do by the end of this unit in your own words, in 4 simple sentences, what would you say? Go ahead and jot that down. Were you able to summarize the standards? If a parent or a colleague who wasn't a science pro like you asked you what the 4 main things students need to know by the end of this unit are, would you be able to easily describe it to them? Great. Students start investigation 1.1 by observing a patient with symptoms of a mystery disease. They generate questions about the symptoms. They pause and then explore the levels of complexity of the human body using a matching, sorting, and/or discussion activity. You can use the levels of complexity multimedia on FOSS to have students then take notes on the levels of complexity. The big takeaways or understandings are that single atoms make molecules, molecules make cell structures like a cell membrane, a nucleus, cell structures make up individual cells make up tissue, like your eye tissue, tissues make up organs, like the actual eye, and organs make up organ systems, like your eye is a part of the nervous system. Now it's your turn to think and practice. Starting with a cell, explain how the stomach, a part of the digestive system, is formed. So start with a stomach cell and then go all the way up the levels of complexity to explain how the stomach itself is formed. You can give an exit ticket similar to the independent work you just did, where you ask students to name the levels of complexity using a specific organ like the liver, the kidney, etc. Or you can give a small little mini quiz like this with these 3 questions about arranging the levels of complexity in order, explaining what an organ system is and what organs are. Investigation 1.1 can take about 15 to 20 minutes of class time, and you can assign the human organ system reading for homework. In Investigation 1.2, students conduct system research. And there are like 2 good ways to do this. You can either assign the entire list on this FOSS worksheet to students to research. You should definitely have guiding questions and specific sites that students should go to. And you can definitely place this assignment on Google Classroom. Another way to do it is to give different systems to different students to research. Still give the students specific sites to go to and guiding questions, and then have each student share out their research while others take notes, sort of like a jigsaw activity. You can also assign this in Google Classroom. Use whatever strategy works for you and best for your classroom structure. For example, how much time you have, how many students you have in your class. For the guiding questions, make sure when students research each system, they come away with these major things. What are the components or structures of the system? What are the functions of the system? How might the system work with other systems in the body? And what might happen to other systems if this specific system stopped working or wasn't working properly? So now students have had some experience with the levels of complexity, and they've done some research about systems and have just, a starting idea of what systems do, how they function, and the structures in different systems. So after this, students then either read, listen, or discuss some more about the symptoms of the patient from Investigation 1.1. They then read about possible diseases, and using evidence from the reading, they determine which disease is most likely causing the patient's symptoms. And this is a great way for students to start constructing argument from evidence as well. You can conduct this activity as a discussion in breakout rooms, as an independent activity, and then share out. Investigation 1.2 should take about 30 minutes. Now it's your turn to think and practice. You're going to complete the activity using evidence from the diseases section of the FOSS book to determine what diseases might be causing the patient's symptoms. Go ahead and complete the activity now. Were you able to determine what disease the patient might be suffering from? This again would be a great check for understanding for students, and you can have a discussion about how symptoms sometimes can tell us what a patient has, but also sometimes because of the way body systems interact, doctors want to do more tests just so they make sure that the symptoms they're seeing do mean that a person is suffering from a specific disease caused by an organ or something in a specific system. So the big takeaways from Investigation 1.2 are that the students learn about the major systems, what the components or structures of the system are, what the functions of the system are, how the system works with other systems, and what might happen to other systems if this specific system stopped working or wasn't working properly. They're building on Investigation 1, so make sure you reinforce that each system starts out as molecules, which then create cells, to tissues, to organs that make up the different systems. And the body system research and the mystery disease scenario allows students to start thinking about how different body systems interact with each other, and how when one system fails or one part of a system fails, it can affect one or more other systems in the body. As a result of 1.2, students also start to realize that symptoms in one part of the body can mean something is not functioning well in another completely different part of the body. At the end of this lesson, you can do a review of the levels of complexity with examples, as well as review the major components of the systems that they researched. After you do this review, it is now time to give students the end of Investigation 1 check for understanding. This Investigation 1 check for understanding should take students no longer than 15 minutes. So now it's your turn to think and practice again. Go ahead and log on to Edulastic and complete the Investigation 1 for Human System Interaction CFU, and then grade yourself after. How did you do on the end of Investigation CFU? 100%? Less than 100%? That's completely fine. Your next steps as you plan to teach this are to read or reread the Investigation 1, 1.1, 1.2 in FOSS, and rewatch this video as many times as you need to if necessary to help you internalize all of Investigation 1. Then create your student-facing materials, things you're going to put on Google Classroom, and your teacher-facing materials like your lesson slides. Go ahead and make sure that you read any readings and make sure you complete any of the work yourself that you plan for students to do, so you have exemplar responses. And go over any multimedia you plan to use with students, either from FOSS or from an additional resource. And lastly, make sure you always try to scribe out directions for how you will lead or teach the lessons. Practice and rehearse as well if you can. All right, you are all set to teach this investigation.